Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to my retro review for UFC 81 that took place on the 2nd of February 2008 at the Mandalay Bay Event Center at the Las Vegas Strip. Um, this fight card is very special because I never saw MMA before this fight card. I got intrigued because I'm a big WWE fan, and then hearing that Brock Lesnar, that I was a fan of, was coming to the UFC, I was intrigued. I was excited. I had no idea about Frank Mir. Basically, had no ideas about MMA. This was the first card I was going into, um, and this till this day, it's a good card. If you're a fan, if you are new to MMA back then, and you wanted to, as a fan, you wanted to show somebody the best part about the sport, this was a good card because it had good fighters right through. So let's start with the card. Let's start with the prelims. The prelims had great fighters. All the prelims had great fighters. If you look at the UFC prelims these days, most of them fighters don't really have a Wikipedia page. But in this fight card, basically there's 8 fighters in the prelims and 7 of them have a Wikipedia page. So let's start off with the first fight on the prelims was Rob Emerson versus Kiyata Nakamura. This was a good fight. It was back and forth. It was a split decision. I had the fight for Nakamura, but the judges had it for Emerson. So it was a great back and forth fight, and it was tooth and nail. So I really recommend this fight from the prelims. I gave it a solid 7 out of 10. The next fight, if you go up, is Tim Bosch versus David Heath. Tim Bosch was actually a really good fighter. I was a big fan of him. He just didn't look like he was so lethal. He didn't really look like he belonged there, but he did belong there. He beat some top class fighters. He has some top class KOs, top class fight of the nights. He fought David Heath. David Heath was just a basic journeyman. He didn't do much great of and going through his record, I didn't see anybody of notable name that he really beat. But once again, you could watch this fight just for the finish of it. He got the first round finish was a TKO. It was a body slam, and it was amazing. It looked beautiful. If you want, Tim Bosch is one of those fighters. You actually go and check out his fights. Always fun. They always had something interesting in them. Moving on to the next fight was the middleweight Marvin Eastman. Eastman was a great fighter. He fought, but let's he okay. So Marvin Eastman took on Terry Martin, but I kind of got because when I was going through this card, I didn't know Eastman actually went to middleweight because I knew him as light heavyweight. He lost to Rampage, and then Victor Belfort destroyed him. He gave him a big ass cut over his head. So I was kind of amazed, but he actually went to middleweight and got a victory. I didn't even know he had a victory in the UFC. So when I watched this fight, it was a decision. Terry Martin, he's the next journeyman, and I think he was just scared to fight Eastman. He was scared of Eastman's power. So just because Eastman didn't have great stamina for him to make it a decision and just dominate Martin, I think Martin was just scared. So this fight, as a 5 out of 10, I won't recommend it because nothing of notice really happened. The main event for the prelims was Chris Lytle, and the only fighter without the Wikipedia page is Kyle Bradley. I did research on him, I couldn't find much. But Chris Lytle was a great fighter, amazing fighter. One of the best, I think one of the greatest joys about this whole journey here is to go back to see these fighters and remember fighters I basically forgot about. Chris Lytle was a great fighter. He was one of those fighters when you knew he was on the card. You're definitely gonna have an excited fighter, excited fight. He was a great striker, great at grappling. He's one of those fighters. If you want to go back to and check out some great fighters, he's one of them people. The only reason he's not remembered really is because he never really won much belts, but each fight he was in was exciting. All right, so we're gonna move on to the main card. So we basically have 2 lightweights going at Tyson Griffin versus Gleison Taibu. This fight was a pretty boring fight. Tyson Griffin basically dominated the fight. The weird part was to see these two guys and to see them they both fought at lightweight. Back then they didn't have much USADA testing, so it's a pretty boring fight. I wasn't really happy. I would probably give it a 5 out of 10. Wasn't really excited. The next fight was in middleweight. It was Ricardo Almeida versus Rob Yunt. Rob Yunt is the second fighter in this card who doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Look back, try to find some things, but nothing really of notice. Like the game got my notice or like got my attention really. Ricardo Almeida was an amazing fighter, great jiu-jitsu fighter back in the day. Everybody was excited he came in the UFC. This is back in the day, UFCs used to do like this, so just like WWE back in the day, there used to be squash matches, and this is one of them squash matches. Ricardo Almeida now came to the UFC. He was world known, he was world renowned for his jiu-jitsu. So they just kind of gave him Robiant, and it showed in the result. First round, guillotine choke. So you could watch this fight just because you could check out Almeida, because he was a great fighter that people don't know much about him. He didn't do great things, but he was a great fighter. Um, Moving on to the next in the card is Nate Marquardt versus Jeremy Holm. Marquardt was a great fighter as well. I know I'm saying these things because they are great fighters but Nate Marquardt was special. He was really, really special. He was one of those fighters when he was dominating. Like he was like great to watch. I remember the finish from Wilson Guevara fight. It was a spectacle. It was amazing to watch. But after he fought for the belt, there was some kind of PED allegations and stuff, and his career took a downfall from there. But prior to the Chael Sonnen fight, his career, you should definitely check it out. It was amazing. After he fought Chael Sonnen, like he was not the same after, I feel. But prior to Chael Sonnen, this is one of those people you should definitely check out. Jeremy Hoon is a legend of the sport, good fighter. I would remember he's good because he was good at one thing at the game, and that was the grappling aspect, but never really made it as great as a striker. So Marquardt basically dominated the fight, second round guillotine choke, but the fight was still fun because Marquardt basically showed off all his skills. So I'll give this fight basically a 7 out of 10. Will recommend if you guys go watch this because it's short and it's sweet. Moving on to the co-main event, the fight everybody's excited to watch this event was Frank Mir versus Brock Lesnar. This fight was very intriguing. This is one of those fights that was for the casual fans. It brought in a lot of fans, especially like I wasn't one of them. So it brought in a lot of fans, and a lot of people was excited. I find this fight was a bit anticlimactic because Brock Lesnar got on top, was beating up Frank Mir, had a dominant position, half guard, everything. But the referee, Steve Marzagatti, I don't know which planet he was. I thank God Dana White banned him from refereeing fights because Brock Lesnar basically should one strike behind Frank Mir's head, but Frank Mir was actually turning, so it basically wasn't a malicious shot. It was just how the fight went through. He stirs up the fight. Brock Lesnar gets another strike, drops Mir, basically stands on top of him, trying to strike with him, not knowing that he leaves his limbs open, leaves his leg open. Frank Mir gets his leg, heel hook. He does the tap. Mazzagatti again takes extra long to break the hole. So, to me, it was very anticlimactic. I was very impressed by Brock Lesnar's performance. Nobody could see that performance and say, well, MMA fighters won, because no, he kind of was dominating the fight till he got caught, and he was inexperienced. It wasn't like he was a bad fighter; it was inexperienced. He fought a guy like Frank Mir, who was highly experienced. So, as Brock Lesnar gains on some more experience, you will see what caliber of a fighter it was. But this fight, you should just check it out for just Brock Lesnar's speed. Yes, it was amazing to see this man so big move so fast. So definitely check this fight out. Frank Mir went up higher levels after this fight, became an interim champion. Brock Lesnar became the champion. So they will fight back in a rematch at UFC 100 that I'll be reviewing, so stay tuned, right? So we move on to the main event, Antonio Nogueira versus Tim Sylvia. If you bought this pay-per-view, if you tuned in for this pay-per-view, and you thought that Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir was a bit anticlimactic, This fight completely made up for it because this fight was a true grits fight. A little background on Nogueira. He was a fighter from Pride. Great fights. The only person he basically lost in Pride was Fedor. He beat McCroop, Carp, all the great legends up in Pride. And when he came to the UFC, he never fought in the UFC. When he debuted in the UFC, he fought Heat Herring. And in the beginning of the fight, he gets rocked, he comes back and gets the win. This fight was basically it, but this time he wasn't fighting Heat Herring, he was fighting somebody, Tim Sylvia, who I have much more respect and regards for as a fighter because he was about 6'10", he was at full 265, he knew how to fought, he knew how to use his long limbs. Tim Sylvia, should check out his trilogy. He had a 3-fight series with Andrei Arlovsky. Great trilogy, great trilogy. 2 finishes. The decision people were upset about, but I was fine with it. So the fight starts off. Tilson drops basically Nogueira, pounds at him, uses his strike in. But Nogueira is a pretty decent boxer. You know, he's also a decent boxer. Isn't like he's just a grappler. He was always a decent boxer. So he could have stayed hold long enough. He had good enough of a chin to hold on till he got the position he needed in the grappling. He got Nogueira down, basically got on the side of him, holding him down. He had basically had a hold to his back. So, but the brilliance of the finish was he let go of the control and came in front of Tim Sylvia and got him with a guillotine choke in the 3rd round. But for the first 2 rounds, man, he suffered. He suffered, but he believed that he could get the victory. But that was the beautiful part about this fight as a fan going back and watching. It was like how tough he was and how much he believed in himself, the determination, just like a Justin Gaethje or Max Holloway, you know, or Yuri Prochazka, who's fighting this weekend. That's how good Nogueira was. It was exciting. The main event basically made up for the co-main event being anticlimactic. So this fight, when you watch this fight, you basically come out as a fan of Nogueira, and you will want to go back and see Tim Sylvia fights because he showed a good showing. He made a mistake. It looked like he made a mistake. It didn't look like he got dominated. He was dominating a fight before he wasn't. So there you go, guys, my retro review for UFC 81. Please stay tuned for UFC 82 review. The main event is Anderson Silva versus Dan Henderson. This is a belt unification. Dan Henderson is the champion from Pride, and Anderson Silva is the champion from the UFC. So they're going to be fighting to unify the belts. So stay tuned to the channel, guys. I will be posting in the next week. My next video will be for UFC 311 preview that I'll be posting tomorrow. So stay tuned.